In this video, we're going to talk quickly about how to make the state or attributes of an instance of a class accessible from outside the class. So we've already seen in the previous videos that you can give an instance of a class some state, some data with instance variables, and that those instance variables are available for editing or manipulation or printing anywhere inside instance methods inside the class. But currently, the way this is set up, this data is not available outside the class. We have to provide some sort of interface between our class and the program outside of the class to make that data available. So if we look down here, we can initialize a new reindeer named Dasher. Dasher can take off and ascend to 3,000 feet, and Dasher can land in Cape Town. If we run this code, we should see that that works just fine. But if we want to be able to access Dasher's state with this dot notation, so this sort of dot name, dot location, we're going to have to provide methods that make this possible from outside the class. So you've done this before. You've called string.length or SumArray.count. So this is a kind of common way to access the data of an instance. So if you're writing a class that another programmer is going to use, it wouldn't be unusual at all for another programmer to want to be able to access these attributes for logging or for manipulation or whatever they're looking to do with them. So if we want to make that available, we'll start with just being able to access, just being able to read these attributes. So in other words, we want to make these attributes readable as opposed to being writable, which we'll look at momentarily. So in order to make name and location readable, we need to write what's called getter methods. And getter methods are just basically methods that wrap around a piece of data and return that piece of data. So my getter method for name would be called name, so we could call .name on an instance, and it would simply return our instance variable of name. Same with location. And these methods are each what's referred to as getter methods, because all they're really doing is sort of making private data publicly available outside the class. So now we should be able to log this information and access these pieces of data on our reindeer instance. So let's give it a try. And we're able to do that. We're able to print that Dasher is in the North Pole, and then once Dasher takes off and lands in Cape Town, we see that Dasher is now in Cape Town. So now we've made these attributes readable. What if we want to make them writable? Well, then we're going to need to provide setter methods. So getter methods make something readable, and setter methods make something writable. So depending on what your class is, you may not always want attributes to be writable. Location, maybe we don't want someone to be able to just edit a reindeer's location. But maybe we want the reindeer to be able to change their name anytime they want to, which means we're going to need to make it possible for the name attribute to be set from outside the class instead of just inside the class. Inside the class, it would be easy. We could just have, some change name sort of, we'll do new name sort of method where @name gets assigned to the new name. And this is fine, but it's just not a ideal pattern. It's not really a best practice. So the best practice, if we want something to be writable, is to just make it possible to be able to assign this directly. So we want to be able to just assign Dasher's new name. So maybe now Dasher is the reindeer formerly known as Dasher. Dasher has gotten very artistic. Okay, so if we run this, we should run into an error. And we do. There's no defined method name equals. So this is kind of our hint that we need to write a setter method. Setter methods have this interesting declaration where they have an equal sign in them. So if I want to write a setter method for name that will make name writable from outside the class, I have to use that equal sign, just like we see it in our error message here. I can use that equal sign, and then it takes an argument, new name. And what happens in here, you may be able to guess, we're just assigning the new name value to our name instance variable. And now that we put a setter method in here, you should be able to run this code where you set the name from outside the class. Go ahead and give it a try. And it works. We see that in the second call to print those attributes, Dasher has a new, more artistic name. That's really all there is to getters and setters and making attributes readable and writable outside the class. That said, once you've had a little bit of practice with this, I'll show you a shortcut to doing this that's a little bit less code. This is such a common thing to need to do that Ruby provides us some easier shortcuts to doing this. But first, let's just get some practice doing it this way.